Okay, it's been a while since I posted anything on this project, but I have been making progress. This is the 1/6 scale Jagdpanther. I've been kind of calling it the summer project. But you saw an opening. If you saw the last video, that was when I had first received the tank, and I hadn't really done anything with it. Well, we've done quite a bit since then. We're going to run this on a 3S LiPo at 12 volts, and so the first thing I did was I hooked up the Sabertooth, the 2x32. That's going to drive the motors, and I put it up on blocks where it is right now. The tracks are not touching the ground on either side, and I tested it, and it worked pretty good. But about 3/4 of the way around the first turn, which was running pretty slow, two links on the left track broke, and the track fell completely off. So that was my first thing that I had to get around. So I started looking at it, and these tracks, I believe they're made of some kind of zinc alloy, but the track pins are made of copper, and that will make them very, very difficult to reuse. So I needed to come up with something to replace track pins. And after talking with some friends, Jerry was real helpful in this. But I decided to use ejector pins. Now these are steel, they're easily available, they come in a 3mm diameter. The problem is I need a 107mm long pin. 110s would have been usable. I could have just knocked a little bit off the ends. But they don't make a 110. They make a 100mm, then it goes to 120, 130, etc. But I went down to Harbor Freight and got a little chop saw, and that was only like 45 bucks with the cutoff discs, and that works perfect for cutting these to length. So here's one that I cut to length. Okay, now the second problem was that the ejector pins are very hard, way too hard to just drill a hole in the end for the cotter pin. So I annealed them. You can see this is discolored. All I did was see if I can get you out of the hole. There's the hole right there. All I did was heated it up with a propane torch till it was a nice cherry red, held it there for 30 to 45 seconds, and then let it air cooled. And that softened the metal enough that I was able to stick it in a I was able to stick it in a Bridgeport. I almost said drill port. What an idiot. But I put it in a Bridgeport, used a number 55 wire drill, which is 52 thou, drilled the hole in the ends of the pins. If I can find them real quick, I've got, I picked up 500 cotter pins for 12 bucks. Now the thing is, these are labeled as 1/32 1mm. Well, there's like a 8 or 9 thou difference between 1/32 and 1mm. 1/32 is actually 0.0315 or 31 thou and 5/10, whereas 1mm is a little over 39 thou. So eventually I might try to replace these with a true 1mm cotter pin because they'll be a little bit beefier. These measure about 35 thou, kind of in between 1/32 and 1mm. But for now they'll be just fine. They'll work just great. They fit the hole easy. They bend around real easy. So I replaced the pins that I needed to in the track, got the tracks back on, and now it's ready for test. But to be honest, I'm kind of scared to test it. I mean, I've only got so many spare links. I really hope no more of them break. The right side track was pretty good right out of the box, runs pretty good, no problems. I do have one broken link that you can see right here, but it's just the end cap that's missing. All the attachment points for the track pins are still present and functional. They're intact. So we're going to go ahead and leave that one as it is for right now. It shouldn't be any problem. So the next thing was to start getting the electronics laid out. And like I said, we're going with a 3S LiPo. I picked up a couple of new ones just for this project, for just at first, and these are them. I picked up the, it's a 3000 milliamp hour 3S LiPo, came with the XT60 connector on the end of it. If this tank works out well on 12 volts, eventually I'll pick up a couple of 8 or 10,000 milliamp hour 3S LiPos for it and run them off, and those will be for this tank. But until then, we're going to run this one. I got to charge this one up before the test. And it's going to run on the Turnigy 9X. All right, this was the first hobby grade radio that I got. I got it in a deal with Eric down at IMEX, and I like it. It works pretty good. There's a couple minor differences between my regular radio and this. I could change this to match, but I've got everything set up, so I'm not gonna. On this one, I've got channel 1 and 3 on this stick, and 2 and 4 on this stick. Most of my radios are 1 and 2 on this stick, and 3 and 4 on this one. Now, this is 2. And that's where the ESC for the elevation will hook up. The traverse we're not really going to use. This tank doesn't have traverse. I don't intend to install it. Doesn't have a turret. On the right I've got 1 and 3. 3 is throttle and 1 is steering. And that's all that means is that I have to plug the servo cables into a different place, into the proper channels for this radio, which is no big deal. So the ESC is, like I say, the 2x32, works great. I will install inline fuses for each motor. I use these automotive blade type, and I have to pick up a couple more fuse holders for them, and then I'll put a 20 amp inline fuse in each motor. You can see this is the way that things are pretty much going to be laid out in the tank when everything's finished. You got the 2x32 saber tooth at the beginning. Then this little red jobby here, let me zoom in on this stuff. This is one of those $12 20 amp ESCs right here. And its sole purpose is to run elevation. It's just plugged directly into channel 2, I think it is, on the receiver. And the elevation will run straight off the receiver from this ESC, which handles 12 volts, no problem. Then you've got, of course, the 8-channel receiver for the 9X, and then the IBU2. I'm using the base because I don't need any of the features on the Pro. This will do everything. I still have to hook up the barrel recoil. I made a special adapter for the battery. That's right here, and the battery will plug in right here, and then it splits. Got one XT connector for the saber tooth and one for the IBU2, and slaved onto that side is a JST connector for the ESC that runs the elevation. I'm running the TPA amp, which I believe is 15 watts. This is going to be the exact same sound system that I have set up in my Hetzer. Right now you can see a couple of Tigen speakers down there. That's just for now. When everything is set up and done, I will build a speaker box across here, and it'll hold two. These are 4-inch, 4-ohm, 50-watt speakers. Exact same thing I'm using in the Hetzer, and on that one, with the engine sounds, I can hear from like a block away on that tank. It gives really good sound, sounds really good, it's nice and clear. The TPA does a really good job. It's got 2 separate channels on the TPA. One for just engine sounds and one for everything else. The one for engine sounds, I will use a remote volume control so that I can turn it up and down from the transmitter. And I do that in case, for any reason, I want to hear what the running gear and the motors and everything are doing without the engine sounds drowning anything out. I can just turn the engine sounds all the way down and see what's what. As for the secondary sounds, like the guns, or the gun sounds, machine gun and main gun, and like stuff like rotation and elevation, those are sounds that are all on one channel, and they're not active unless you trigger a function. If you fire the cannon, then it makes the sound. Otherwise, channel 2 is just silent all the time. So I don't use a remote volume control on that. I use a small volume control for the like you would use in a Tigen tank, and I just leave the secondary sounds turned all the way up all the time. So, you know, and outside that's fine. If I need to turn those down, then I have to go into the tank to turn them down. But it's not often enough that I need that it's worth putting in a separate volume control. And that's also why I need the 9X, because to run this system, I've got to have at least 5 channels. I need 4 for the IBU and 1 for the remote volume control. And the 9X will handle that with no problem. I also did a little bit of looking into the upper hull, which is right here. You're looking at the inside of it. You can see that it's made out of fiberglass. This is the elevation system. This is a motor controlled system, and that's the motor. And that's why I had to have the other ESC to run elevation. This servo is for barrel recoil, which will be plugged right into the IBU, and I know that's no problem because I used that circuit in the Hetzer, but instead of using the servo for barrel recoil, I used the servo to pull the trigger on the paintball gun. But I have tested the elevation, everything works. I still have not tested the barrel recoil. That's a pretty beefy servo. I'm hoping that the power from the IBU will be sufficient to operate it. If not, I'll have to power the servo separately, which is not a problem. I can do that, and I'm sure that if I put the straight 12 volts to it, it'll work just fine. In fact, probably burn it up. But that's something I'll have to investigate if it comes up. But that's where we're at right now on our summer project Jagdpanther. The electronics are coming along nicely. The motors and transmission seems to work just fine. If that left track holds up, then I'm in business. And like I said, the test for that will come either today or tomorrow, and I'll get a video of that, and that'll be the next time you see us. So that's where we're at, and until next time, we'll see you next time.